everyone. Welcome to Watch Challenge. On each episode, we challenge ourselves to find and watch a film of a particular type and then report back the results to each other and you fine listeners. My name is Mike Wendt.
And I'm Aaron Spears. This episode's challenge, we got it in just under the wire for Pride Month. New Queer Cinema, which is a kind of very particular subset of independent film in the early through mid 90s. I think as I looked it up, there were some reverberations that go out into Hollywood into the mid to late 90s. I was seeing like The Birdcage and some more higher
Yes,
profile films that were credited with like that probably existed because there was this strong independent movement that happened a few years earlier.
absolutely. Yeah, and it seems like this term was coined by a critic, B. Ruby Rich, who used to write for The Village Voice and Sight and Sound. Basically, she cited several films of being in this time period in the early 90s of being like kind of like the ones that caused her to to coin this phrase, like Todd Haynes's Poison, Lori Lynn's RSVP, Isaac Julian's Young Soul Rebels, Derek Jamin's Edward II, and Greg Araki's The Living End were some of the ones that I mean, I'm sure there are countless, or there are several others, that definitely can be named during that time period. But yeah, I mean, definitely, it shows how, I think, how far we've kind of come, over the last 30 plus years, that for a while it was almost like a taboo subject to have in films.
Yeah.
But then this, a lot of these queer filmmakers, basically knocked down the door and was just like, hey, like, it's time for our stories as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think she was even referencing Rich. I think she even referenced like a couple years, I think, on the either Sundance or the festival circuit specifically, that were like, hey, there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on here, which is really fascinating to me. That was the time, like age wise, I was able to convince people I knew that had access to a car, kind of like mid 90s, like 94. Well, probably like, yeah, like 94 ish, to either like drive up to the art house theater here, like the Cedar Lee or the Cinematheque here in Cleveland,
Yeah.
to go see these movies. Mostly it was watching this stuff on VHS that I could get from a local video store or the library. And so like I was reading about like Filmmaker Magazine or Movie Maker Magazine, maybe even Premiere actually a little bit. The independent boom that kicked off with like Sex Lies and Videotape
Yeah.
and Slacker. I think Clerks came a little bit touch later there though, but there was this avenue in the 90s where like if you could just get together, like, well, okay, first I think you'll appreciate as a filmmaker, Mike, like if you can get together, you can get a credit card and access to like
Oh,
5 grand in debt. You could rent some equipment. There was this avenue of like I can get into a festival. The gold standard was Sundance, but like if you get into Telluride or even Slam Dance starts up, you could get your unique individual story in front of some eyeballs, and then even if you didn't make it to the art house, you could get to a video store shelf, and there was a market there where like, oh yeah, we can get this out there, in front of people, at least on a video store, and we can make a certain amount of money. And I think it's really interesting, especially particularly the film I picked to talk about a little bit as my main choice. There's even references to some of those movies, like the Sex Lies and Videotape, and independent film boom there, late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
That this so like the new queer cinema movement, that was just part of that indie film movement, as far as I
Right.
was watching. And so when I was first able to get out and up to see movies at the art house, like on the big screen, I was seeing a bunch of these movies. I was just like, this is independent film. Holy shit, America's got a whole movement going. Like I couldn't have been more energized, like finishing up high school than heading off to college. These are just
Absolutely.
like, I kind of had to dig in here because I'd watched a lot of these either as they were coming out or, grabbed them on VHS as soon as I could. But I did end up luckily finding one that I hadn't seen that was sort of inadvertently saving and kind of forgot about.
Yeah. No,
In there as well.
yeah, mine is one that I've always heard about, and actually my wife was a big fan of, so she was excited when I told her what the theme of this episode was about, because she was like, "Oh, have you seen this?" And I was like, Actually, no. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm jumping ahead of the gun
Oh
as
yeah, yeah.
always, but
It, yeah, there's probably also the very brief caveat we should get of like, a couple of straight guys here talking about nuclear cinema.
right, right.
But I have to say, one of the biggest appeals to me for films is their capacity to put me into different experiences I'm not going to be able to have in my lifetime.
Exactly.
I really crave like the unique, not unique is like, that's not the right word, different experiences than what I actually am experiencing here. And
Yeah.
this definitely gives me that.
Yeah, because like I mean, I'm sure when I was growing up and maybe saw some of these, maybe there was a an uncomfortability level, but now I mean, maybe I'm just desensitized by movies,
Probably, probably.
but having seen quite a few now, it's like I'm just once again, it's like you're always happy to see unique perspectives and just different ideas from your own, and
Yeah.
and so like yeah, some of these films I mean are some of the best of the last I mean arguably of the last 30 years or so.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I may have a little bit of a nostalgia warping it, but like some of these films hit me in such a way when I saw them at like such a
Sure.
formative time. I was like, I expected a certain amount, like because as we head into the late '90s, there's like a corruption process in my brain, or the way I look at like the Sundance Film Festival marketplace that
Yeah.
became the festival marketplace. You get up to some stuff where you get like the Sundance independent movie. We're like, that's not what I'm interested in. I want, like, you know, Derek Jarman's Edward II, like you mentioned. I watched that one. Actually, I didn't watch that till film school, but I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like it was confounding. And then like, within like 8 or 9 years, Sundance becomes more of a marketplace than an exhibition for artists. And you get,
Right.
I'm trying to think of famous like '90s ones like Spitfire Grill. Like it's a movie of the week. Like it's almost an ABC or like a Hallmark Channel kind of movie that sells for 15. Well, yeah, it's a PG-13 audience pleaser. That's not what I'm looking for on like an
Right.
independent, film market. Like just go pitch that to a studio then. But you
Yeah.
had this time period where like there was really like risque and groundbreaking stuff coming out of I keep saying Sundance. There's other festivals obviously doing that too.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah,
But
like
I
some of
mean,
these like are
obviously
so
you
formative. Yeah.
I mean, you look at, I mean, just something recent, of course, like Coda, which is,
Mhm.
a very fine movie, and I think help raise the bar for for deaf representation in film. But
Yeah.
that also is kind of like one of those, it is kind of like a Hallmark movie in some respect. It's
Mhm.
very ordinary. That yeah, I mean, it's very far different from the Sundance that the early years of Sundance and of
Yeah.
the late 80s and 90s, but
So, and then stuff evolves, it changes. I get it, but like, yeah, there's like this sweet spot where I was like, because if you just looking up some of those, well, like what B. Ruby Rich was mentioning, like you've got the Poison and RSVP and Edward II and Swoon, like some of those are like that's all that year at Sundance, like that's crazy.
yeah.
Some of these and the concentration there, but well, that's our extended preface for what we're looking at here with New Queer Cinema. So yeah, honorable mentions. We get those out of the way first. Mike, you want a couple of names to throw out here? Some films that you want to shout out?
Yeah, yeah. So some of these, and I will say that I haven't seen all of these that I'm suggesting, but one of them I think is maybe not. I would have to check if it's actually a part of the new queer cinema, but My Own Private Idaho by Gus Van Sant,
Mhm.
which came out in the early '90s, which I think at the time was that introduced it had out characters
Yeah,
in the the lead roles, which a lot of times before that they were delegated to supporting characters or something like that. And that's, I mean, I think it's a great film, and Criterion did a really great job with the release of it. I highly suggest it. So it's easily, you can find it pretty easy on the Criterion channel, or I believe HBO Max might also have it on their TCM.
yeah.
There's a great movie that you can currently find on Netflix, which was something that I watched for this episode, but it's not my pick.
Right.
But Edge of 17
Oh
is a
yeah.
Yes, it's a movie that was written by Todd Stevens, who made a movie last or that played last year at played at the Cleveland International Film Festival, but it also played at South by Southwest, called Swan Song,
Mhm.
which is basically he wrote Edge of 17, and then he directed another movie in between, which I believe, um, gosh, I can't think of the title at the moment, but it was like basically a trilogy of him growing up in Sandusky, Ohio, and Edge of 17, very charming movie. Basically just about young man coming of age in mid 80s, Sandusky, where it's that was definitely against the norm.
Yeah.
And then probably one of the most famous of that era would be Adventures of Priscilla in the Desert,
Oh, Queen of the
which
Desert.
is a
Yeah.
big, yeah, or big midnight movie.
Yeah.
There's even that that one episode of, and I can't believe I'm quoting the Drew Carey show, but there's one episode in particular where I believe they name drop the Cedar Lee even, and they have like basically the Rocky Horror fans are complaining that Priscilla Queen of the Desert is playing instead of
Yes.
Rocky Horror. So there's a dance or kind of
Yeah. I
like
do remember
a
that one.
song off,
Yep.
where they're singing Time Warp and then the Shake Your Groove thing.
Right.
It's, and so but that's probably if for somebody who maybe is not very familiar with this genre, I
Yeah.
think that's one to really like introduce yourself
Oh, sure.
into the genre.
So the Todd Stevens trilogy, because I only remember this because they screened when they did Swan Song at the Cleveland Film Festival. They did these
Yes.
other ones. Edge of 17. It was Gypsy
Oh, Gypsy
80,
83.
83. Yeah. So it
Yes.
goes. So how does that go for the trilogy? And so it's Edge of
Edge of
17,
17, Gypsy 83, Swan Song. Yeah.
which is one of those like loose like thematic trilogies, not character wise. Because I haven't seen Gypsy
Yes.
83. Okay.
Yes, but Swan Song highly suggests it. I know it's I don't know, it maybe it falls into the new queer cinema, but it is it stars Udo Kier
Hmm.
as a hairdresser. It's I thought it was just it was such an entertaining movie.
Oh yeah,
Now,
it's great.
full disclosure, I did have, I helped a little bit with that movie. I mean, a small part, to kind of help them get some crew members just because he had not been here for so long. So
Right.
it was so but that I was never there for the any of the filming, so it's like I'm kind of unbiased, but I
Right.
mean it really just kind of blew me away.
You've also helped out with terrible movies too. So it's
Sure,
job's a
sure.
job.
Now,
Not naming
any
names, just saying.
right,
Yeah.
right. Any honorable mentions for you?
Well, I was going to say, I think Swan Song works in the way that we could say, like, it's an alumni of the new queer cinema movement because, like,
Yes.
it's kind of time period specific. This particular movement, early to mid '90s, but it's someone who was part of it,
Yeah.
as the filmmaker. So it works in there too. I do actually. I inadvertently had a theme develop as I was scrolling through some different lists online and writing down like, oh my god, that movie was great. Oh my god, that movie was great. But also I was searching for. I was like, I wanted one that I hadn't seen before. Obviously, that's the idea of a watch challenge. And I ended up with three romantic comedies that are my
Oh,
honorable
okay.
mentions. So I kind of even honed in on a very specific subgenre within the new queer cinema. The first one is Cheryl Dunye did one, Watermelon Woman, in which is actually a little bit later,
Okay.
'96, but she self financed it. She's the writer, she's the director, she's the star, she's the editor. That's kind of a theme that's going to go through most of my picks here. But she was working on it for a while because it's one of those like micro budget movies where she plays a video store clerk. So it's already got my heart right there.
Sure.
And she's working on a documentary investigating this woman she sees in a silent film that's known as the Watermelon Woman. And she so goes into film history too. And I was like, oh my god, this is hitting all the buttons for me. And it's great because it's also multi-format because it's her at the video store. She's dating, she's dating Guinevere Turner. More on her in just a moment.
Yeah.
but then also making this documentary. So it's like a video journal as part of the movie. It's an acted, scripted scenes where she's working at the video store, but then she's also making this documentary. So there's fake documentary footage interviewing film scholars and fake footage of these non-existent silent films where she's looking for the watermelon woman. So it's got all
Wow.
these layers to it. It's real breezy. I mean, it's maybe like 80, 85 minutes. So, I mean, any film geeks out there, this will push up, it'll still hit a bunch of
Yeah.
buttons for you. Check a lot of boxes. I think it was up on Canopy last I checked. And then speaking of Guinevere Turner, she wrote and starred in Go Fish in 1994 that Rose Troche directed and edited, which is just, it's a great romantic comedy. It's all set in a kind of a lesbian friend group. It's kind of I had an analogy. So it's a lesbian romantic comedy, low budget black and white movie. The way Clerks is basically like, I would say it's a romantic comedy, but like
Right.
it's it's a heterosexual black and white, film geek,
Bromance. A bromance. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that one is fantastic. It just makes you smile, and it also makes you squirm a little bit in that way where you're like those awkward moments when you're trying to date somebody and it's not quite working out, and you're like, ooh. Like it's so tender and intimate in some of the scenes where you're like, this is so intimate for these two people. Should I be watching? Like, it's got, not that it's a voyeur aspect to it, but that was like, it really captures those human moments. You're like, oh God, I've been there. That is so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But also juggling like when your friends do and don't like your potential romantic partners. Like there's a navigation there of like, I have a core friend group and like, oh crap, what if they aren't, down with my new significant other, or how's that going to play out? And then the last shout out, it's still on my list of one of the like just best coming of age movies I've ever seen. Saw it up at the Cedar Lee Theater. I think it was spring '95, right around the time I was graduating high school. The Incredibly True Adventures of Two Girls in Love.
Ah, yes. Yes.
Maria Maganetti, I may be mispronouncing her last name, writer, director. What I love about all three of these movies, so that's two teenagers. I think it's their senior year of high school. One of them is out. Another one realizes she's lesbian in the course of the film, and they start to date. Also, one's black and one's white. So there's a little bit of a, not racial drama there, but there's some tensions to the relationship because of that a little bit. Not to their relationship, but to people looking in on their relationship, parents, friends, all that sort of stuff. But I really like them too. Looking back on it, all three of those are not, and I think that's sort of a hallmark of the new queer stuff that I've seen, at least. They're not coming out stories. That's what Hollywood does.
Right.
Oh, what should happen? And then they, come out at the end or whatever. Like that was the period that Hollywood would get into. These are all like, I'm out. Yeah, that's me. Now what? Life. Here's what's going on. Everybody's looking for, a romantic connection, that sort of thing. So I kind of like that there was a inadvertent theme there, but also I wasn't realizing that as I was watching those when I was younger, but like it is something like on the independent, very passion project style that we're looking at here with this movement. They're not concerned with playing to a large, like to the masses at the multiplex. It's like, here's the story I want to tell. I'm telling the story, and totally, in charge of your own project, your own film. And I like that.
Exactly. No, I think that's just the independent spirit of that time period for sure.
Yeah, I think so too.
So what did you end up picking?
Oh, actually, so you inadvertently already named the film I picked. The name from this time period for me is Greg Araki.
Yeah,
his stuff hit me at a film geek level, but also starting film school. I was doing film theory, history, criticism, not production, but man, that guy was like grabbing a camera and making a movie. I went with The Living End because I had not actually seen The Living End. Budget of $22,000. Like I said earlier, that sounds like a couple of credit cards to me.
Which would you rather die for? Sex or love?
So what's your name? The sexy slab of buff beefcake.
Luke.
Stop it, Daisy. You just want to play hide the weenie with him, and you know it.
Where's the party, animal?
15 left.
The test only verifies that you have the antibodies to the virus. Sorry.
I mean, you were careful, right?
Yeah. Most of the time.
Prepare to swallow your teeth, faggot.
Guess again, Three Stooges. 48 hours ago, I was just another bummed out HIV positive homo minding my own business.
Go, dude! Go!
I'm a fugitive facing an accessory murder rap.
Dude, come on. It's gonna be rad.
You totally lost your mind. Where are you?
I don't know. Siberia.
You want to know what it is I like best about guys' bodies?
I really hate guys who talk during sex. Did I ever mention that? I'm not going to fondle your crotch right now.
Why not?
Because I'm a responsible driver.
What do you say we go to Washington, blow Bush's brains out?
Or better yet,
Inject him with a syringe full of our blood? How much you want to bet they'd have the magic cure by tomorrow?
Many people live perfectly healthy, normal lives for years and years.
The world is ours.
Yeah, right.
I'm tail end of Generation X. So one of the first new Queer Cinema Movement films I saw in theaters at Cedar Lee was The Doom Generation. The poster spoke to me. I don't think I even saw the trailer at the time because there was no internet to speak of. I was not seeing that trailer before movies that you'd see at the multiplex. But the poster, everything about it just screamed Generation X to me. And I was like, that's me, man. I am wearing flannel. I'm listening to, Nirvana and Pearl Jam and, Mudhoney, all the grunge rock stuff. And I went and saw it in the theater and I was like, I didn't know you could do that in a movie. That's crazy. And it was so exhilarating and fun. And so I made people watch it in film school. We watched Nowhere. We watched Totally Fucked Up, his teen apocalypse movies, but I never got to The Living End. And I remember a number of years ago, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna wait on that. It was one of those, like, there's only so many movies. Like, there's still 2 Kubrick movies I've never watched. I'm like, I'm just saving them. I still want to have a new Kubrick movie out there to discover. And then, the world we live in, Roe versus Wade decision came down, the concealed carry decision came down, the prayer in schools. I was just like, you know what? I'm in the mood for something aggressive and confrontational and, frankly, a little angry. And The Living End is all of those. We get Luke and John, and again, hitting those buttons for me. John is a film critic in the movie, like a part-time employed film critic. Luke is just, at this point, we pick him up in the movie. He's just hustling and robbing and killing to get by. But it's a really interesting story where it's 1992 for The Living End. He's writing it, end of the 80s, early 90s. And it's 2 HIV positive men, gay men, that end up connecting. They're angry. They're kind of pissed off. They're scared. This is not a time period where you're going to be able to, like we have nowadays, where you can, with medication, you can mitigate being HIV positive in a very different way than you could in 1991, 1992. So they're like looking at the end of their lives, basically, and they end up road tripping, but also falling like fucking passionately head over heels for each other. And there's an intoxicating mix that Iraqi puts together of he wrote, directed, shot, edited, produced. Like, he's not in front of the camera, but if it's going on behind the camera, he's doing it basically here. They hit the road, and it's kind of like, it's hedonism, it's violence, it's fuck the world, it's all of that. But honestly, by the end of it, the last image of it, I'm not going to ruin anything here, but like, it's beautiful by the end. Granted, it's not going to end well for these characters, but like, you find some beauty in what he's doing there, but it is in your face, aggressive. There's a fuck everything mentality, kind of, a little bit of nihilism going on there for sure. But it's rough around the edges, $20,000, movie. It's his first feature film. He'd done a couple shorts and he had his master's in film production by then. I think he did USC, but it really wraps up a lot of what was going on kind of in, like, politically, but also just in society as a whole. If you're an out gay man going through the world, like, they are harassed. There are neo-Nazis in this movie. There's
right.
Out and out fascist cops in this movie. And they are not I should say mainly Luke is not taking any shit from anybody.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, it's refreshing to see someone have a point of view in their film, and like, I don't care if you like this or not. This is me, and this is what I'm doing. And it's very in your face about it, and I love it. Also, I think there's like Joy Division, Dead Can Dance, Jesus and Mary Chain, 9 Inch Nails, like KMFDM. Like, it's got a soundtrack. It's got some music, and it's great. It's a very specific type of film, and very, very like the sweet, beautiful, like, romantic comedies and dramas I mentioned as my honorable mentions. Wildly different. The heart is still there, but it's not the point of the movie, I should say, I guess. So, one was exactly what I wanted to see, and it was exactly. I'm so glad I waited to catch it now.
I'll have to fully admit, like, cinematic blind spots are, I've not really seen much of his work, so I am got some work ahead of me because that sounds pretty fantastic. To
It's
be
definitely one of
honest,
those, like, it's maybe not like you want the relaxing evening, just sit down and watch something. I don't know.
that could be the nice Saturday or Sunday morning matinee.
Yeah.
watch,
First thing in the morning, kind of. It'll wake
Get
you
it
up.
out of the
It'll
way.
wake you up.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, I that's a high recommend. I just watched it the other day. It's on Canopy. I think his stuff's on Criterion as well, streaming. I don't know if they put out the editions or not yet, but no, they did.
Yeah.
I would have bought them. I don't think they're out on those. But, well, how about you, Mike? What did you go with for this particular watch challenge?
Yeah, so I ended up going with something that is on towards the end of the 90s,
Okay.
but nonetheless, this is one of the filmmakers that was cited in that article. This is from director Todd Haynes.
Mhm.
It's Velvet Goldmine from 1998.
It doesn't really matter much what a man does with his life. What matters is the legend that grows up around him.
Brian Slade was the wildest rock star to come out of London.
The biggest thing since sliced Beatles.
But that wasn't enough.
We set out to change the world.
What happened? Who did it? And why?
Next week is the anniversary of the whole shooting incident.
One journalist is about to look into the mystery.
I was trying to contact you about a story.
From the moment Brian Slade stepped into our lives, nothing would ever be the same.
He was, in the end, like nothing he appeared.
Right after everything crashed, Brian seemed to get lost in the lie. Came someone else.
Miramax Films invites you to throw away your expectations and take a magical trip back to the 70s. When the glam scene rocked London, and the outrageous fashions, music, and behavior shocked the world.
Very interesting movie. And it was, it's a very stylistic film. And, basically it's almost, it's kind of weird to, I guess, compare it to Citizen Kane, but it's almost a story. I mean, no, I don't. Yeah, and I don't mean in the way of the film itself, but the way the story structure essentially. So
Gotcha, yeah.
So you have Christian Bale playing this rock journalist who attended a concert that we have. Well, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. We have this character Brian Slade who seems like a amalgamation of David Bowie and a couple different artists who basically faked his own death 10 years prior at a concert where it appears that he's been shot. And that's not a spoiler or anything, but then also so basically Christian Bale's character was actually at that show. So he starts to talk to different people. So you basically are talking to different people in Brian Slade's life throughout, who can shed light on who Brian Slade was. But at the heart of it, I think, is we have the Christian Bale character who was closeted, by attending these concerts and seeing people like Brian Slade, and also the Ewan McGregor character named Kurt Wilde, who's from what I read is kind of like a tip of the hat to Iggy Pop. This allows Christian Bale's character to finally come out of the closet and live as a gay man. Like there's one part in particular that I thought was, it's like basically he's watching the TV with his family and you see the concert and he's like, Dad, see this? Dad, this is me. This is me. This is who I am. And like the dad and the mom are just like, huh? Like what is it? but no, I found it to be a very, it's very unique, in that I don't know if I fully loved the movie or anything,
Mm.
but I admired a lot of the choices that were made, and just the acting and the music, of course,
Oh yeah.
is a big part of the movie. But yeah, it was, I'm finally glad to check this off, because I inadvertently have kind of helped scout for some of the Todd Haynes movies that were thinking about shooting in Cleveland, but they ended up shooting in Cincinnati. Carol,
Oh, nice.
and the film Dark Water.
Mhm.
So through those, I started to like really explore a lot of his filmography, and I've seen
Yeah.
pretty much everything except for this one. And I just thought that it shows his strengths of, just camera placement, and I don't know, it's a whole vibe,
Right, right, right.
sometimes when you see a movie like this, and I
Yeah.
mean, and I think he really used a lot of the elements that were used to make this movie into the Bob Dylan kind of biopic that he made in the
Oh.
late 2000s, which I think is
Uh,
I'm Not There.
I'm Not There. Yeah, yeah. I was just gonna think of
Yeah.
that one. Yeah, where all these different people play Bob Dylan.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think, and I think that was like the first Todd Haynes movie that I'd seen. So it really, like, watching this, like, reminded me of that film, and actually
Yeah.
made me want to watch that movie again, wherever I can find it. Cause I know it's a Weinstein movie, and who knows where all the rights are right now. But no, I'm very glad that, having, and I don't, like I said, like, this came at the end of the 90s, so I don't know, it might like fall right on the cusp of nuclear
Yeah.
cinema, but definitely, it was a trip, and very kind of like memorable one.
Well, the producer for Vela Goldman has worked with Todd Haynes, I think, throughout most of his career. Christine Vachon, who does Killer
Yes.
Films, she was right there with Poison with him in '91. So like she's but I mean, if you want producer extraordinaire, she's the bio to look up, because she also did Go Fish and probably everything else we mentioned. Frankly, like
Oh
that's
yeah. Yeah.
kind of her area of expertise, and getting some of those voices out there in the early '90s too, which is interesting, because like that's somebody as a producer, like that's not a name everybody would recognize the way like a Todd Haynes or Greg Araki or that sort of thing. Because Todd Haynes has an interesting streak in him too of music, which I hadn't thought of, because I totally forgot about Velvet Goldmine, and I have not seen it,
Yes.
so I got to get on that one.
Yes.
Because he did the I'm Not There, the Bob Dylan one, and then he just did a phenomenal called the Velvet Underground documentary last year, or the year before. I guess it was 2020 or 2021, but it's
Yeah, last year.
last year. Okay, yeah, all about Velvet Underground, and I was like it's when you watch it, you're just like, oh, this is the definitive documentary for this
Oh my
band.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that, I mean, it's, I know sometimes we talk about Oscars or whatever. I mean, I was kind of bummed that it was overlooked for the doc nominations, just because, and I know
You say it didn't
sometimes
win. I don't. It didn't even get a nomination then, right?
no, they didn't.
Oh,
And
man.
it's like, I think sometimes they thumb at like the retrospective kind of things, even though Summer of Soul won, which
Oh
was a
yeah,
great movie.
great movie. Yeah,
Very great movie. But I was just like, hey, that's great. Why,
yeah. How
why,
about this one?
yeah. But I mean, because like he told it in a way that kind of almost transcended the documentary. Like,
Yeah, I think so too.
so yeah.
Yeah, breaking new ground as well as making a kick-ass documentary.
Yeah, no, so I just think
Yeah.
he's like, I honestly think he's one of the best American filmmakers that we have.
That's weird too, because as you were talking about Velvet Goldmine, I was like, wait, is
Very
he
British movie.
or is he
Yeah.
American? Not that it
Yeah.
necessarily matters, but I was like, oh no, he's an American filmmaker. He just went to Velvet Goldmine. That was like, all right, nice, excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to get on it. That one, yeah, that's been floating on. I even had Velvet. God, I'm fucking up the names now. Velvet Goldmine.
Yeah.
On VHS. I think I still have it actually. It's not still shrink wrapped or anything, but I remember buying it and was like, oh, I gotta watch this one. And I've never gotten to that one. I gotta.
Yeah. Yeah. This one, it's a little hard to find on streaming, but I was able to rent it on Vudu or
Oh, okay.
whatever. I think that's like it's like a Walmart thing, but you know, that was the right, but
yeah,
that was the only way to access it, you know, at least for this episode.
Gotta do what you gotta do. But interesting. Yeah, no, I have to get on that one immediately. And there's actually a few more that I'd found from this era that I was like, oh, I never got to that one either. And then watching Living End, I was like, God, there's such an energy here that I was like, yeah, all right, well, that's the idea of the watch challenge. It opens up a can of worms, then you're like, all right, well, I got this rabbit hole I got to go down for, you know, the next 3 or 4 movies I'm watching, because my queue just infinitely expands every episode that we do.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of further episodes, what do we have for next time?
So this wraps up, this particular episode wraps up our 12th episode. So we're thinking, like, let's put a challenge out there. We know we got a few listeners. We've had a few exchanges with folks. Still, you know, it's a young show, but let's put out the call for listener suggestions. We're going to be taking a little break here as we're in the middle of summer. We got a couple of vacations scheduled. So we will be back with our next episode July 28th, about a month from the time you're listening to this. If you listen to it the moment it drops. So in the link in the show notes here, there's a way to just do a quick little suggestion link to send us a topic, you know, either a topic or genre of film or something that you would want us to cover on the show. We also have watchchallengepodcast@gmail.com if you want to send any suggestions, or, you know, find us on social media, or if you're a IRL person who listens to the show and sees us around the our haunts, our theaters here in Northeast Ohio, you know, hey, what about this topic is also also welcome. So yeah, send us some ideas. They can be as off the wall as you want to. They could be as I don't want to say, well, I was going to say like vanilla or ordinary, but like, you know, like, hey, you didn't do any film noir yet. Do some film noir. So
yeah, weirder the better.
Absolutely, weirder the better. Go for something deep and obscure, or you know, we've done everything from Best Picture nominees to Ozploitation to, you know, we watch anything basically here on this show, and so we're curious what topics you may throw our way. So go ahead and submit some ideas. We will comb through those and start up, I guess, season 2, as it were, end of July. We'll be back. So looking forward to seeing what gets thrown our way, Mike.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, we will. I would say we'll talk soon, but we'll talk in a few weeks.
Absolutely. Have a good one.